Hey everybody, before we start the show, just a quick note from our partner, Sharkscope.com. Do you play online poker at one or more sites? Want to find out what your real profit and ROI numbers are? Once you register, Sharkscope gives you up to 10 free searches a day. So go ahead, head on over to Sharkscope.com and put your screen name in the player statistics section. If you've opted in, all your stats will appear. If you haven't, you'll get a snapshot of your stats. Looking to combine all your screen names into a group and see where you really stand? For as little as $10 a month, you can access these advanced features. Sharkscope, the best for over 10 years. Track your statistics, avoid the sharks, and find easier tournaments at Sharkscope.com.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by RunItOnce.com. I'm your host, A. Schwartz, alongside Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane.
What's up, white boy? I eat grass.
And Mr. T. Chan in Hong Kong. T, how are you?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? It's a nice day to do it. A nice rainy afternoon in Hong Kong to do a podcast. How's it going over there?
Well, you flew halfway across the world to get away from the rain, and now you're just...
Yeah. Well, it does happen about once every 2 weeks around this time of year.
Yeah, it's a real downpour, too, right? When it happens.
When it happens, yeah, they get serious around here sometimes. You can Google some pretty cool storms around here, and you can see it's like some days it's so windy that you can do that thing where you just like lean forward and the wind props you up.
Oh, the weatherman thing?
Level. Yeah, like yeah, exactly, and then that's the stuff that's a little beyond that, but it's just the usual garden variety around here today.
There's an earthquake that just hit Japan.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a...
Hope everybody's safe over there. Big one, I think, like a 7.3 or something like that. Right in Fukushima, too, I think.
Yeah, same spot.
Where the power plant was last time, so hopefully we don't get any more nuclear fallout.
Yeah. This is Pokercast 439, November 21st, 2016. We had to do one. It hasn't been a week since we've done a show, but what we thought we'd do is get some of the mailbag out of the way. Excuse me. We had a ton of mail that we never get to. We aim to get to all this wonderful email that we get every week from our listeners, and then we just flat run out of time. So we're going to throw in an extra show here and squeeze most of it in. A couple of hands Ross has got from back playing the pokers. We'll walk through. But off the top, T, I see you've been talking on social media about Bloodsport 4. You're gonna remake the Bloodsport movie?
Yes, I am. I guess I should put on my best bad French accent this week.
Jean-Claude?
Or Belgian accent. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's another reason we got to do a show today, because I think in about 2 days I'm going to be heading out there to over to Macau, just taking a boat over. And usually when I take a boat over there, it's to do a little gambling. But not this week, other than gambling with my life, I suppose. I'm fighting in a tournament. It's a 16-person tournament. There's guys from all over the world. One from, all the countries that are represented. So it's the World Mixed Martial Arts Association Cup, something like that. WMMAA.org. They might stream it live on YouTube. I'm not sure. But basically, it's a 16-man tournament, so, typical from 16 down to 8, 8 down to 4, and 4 down to 2 on the first day, and then the second day is the finals. So, potentially fighting 3 times in one night, and then 4 times in 2 days, so, yeah, Pretty cool stuff. So, at least I'm in shape, right?
Is Chong Li one of the guys, 16 guys? From Bloodsport?
I gotta find out how I can throw some dust in somebody's eyes or something.
Wasn't Chong Li fat? Like, that's what I remember from Bloodsport. I remember thinking this ultimate badass is a big fat ass.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's all right. So,
not every fat guy's out of shape, I guess.
When you take these fights, you have months to prepare. You talk to your coaches. You break down your opponent. There's, how much different is it going into a tournament where you can fight 3 times? Well, hopefully you fight 3 times in a day and then 4 in 2 days. Like, how different are the fights? Give us a breakdown for the people who don't really follow it that as close.
I think it'll be pretty. I mean, I don't know, because I've never done anything like this. Most of the time, in modern MMA, you just fight once. Like, you fight 3 rounds, 5 minutes, and you're preparing for the guy. I think it'll be quite different. They made their round shorter, so it's 2 3-minute rounds. So that's dramatically shorter. And then if it's tied after 2 rounds, only then do you go to an overtime round. So, like, potentially, even if you don't knock out or submit the guy, you still only fought for 6 minutes. If you won those 2 rounds, you advance to the next round. So it's not quite as like brutally bad.
Right.
You can't obviously like do the sort of scouting on this kind of stuff that you normally would do, like, see if you could watch a guy's previous fights or whatever. But maybe you can. Maybe you can just Google them. The draw, I think, comes out just like on Friday night. I think as soon as everybody weighs in, then they'll do the draw, and they'll do the brackets and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. But I mean, the thing is, I've always wanted to challenge myself. Like, this is, I've had fights and I've had tough fights before, but I think this will be harder than anything ever. Like if I win this thing, I'll have earned it for sure. Like there's just no way. Like no. I mean, you'll be I'll be banged up and I'll be bruised. Like there's no way the winner of this thing like escapes without a little bit of damage. But I mean, like, this is the thing. I didn't get into this. You don't do it. It's not worth doing if it's easy. I think. Not to say any previous fights have been easy, because I don't think. Yeah, like, I mean, I guess I've had some fights that were easy, but the training camps for them were hard. But I mean, it's just, yeah, like, this is it's going to be tough, but it should be tough. But the reward will also be there too, I think.
Is it at a casino?
It is. It's at Studio City, which is so you guys have been to the City of Dreams in
Sure.
Macau.
Yep.
The City of Dreams it's the City of Dreams, and attached to it are the Hard Rock Hotel and the Studio City Hotel. So it's part of that sort of trio that are sort of attached. So yeah, it's at a big casino. If you are a Macau local or in the area, you can check it out. I'm pretty sure you can see the tickets on the Studio City website. Yeah, come check it out.
That's awesome. So is the
Mr.
approach
Trump might be there. He's touring Asia, isn't he, right now?
Is he really?
Maybe Donald will be in attendance, because I know Putin goes to a lot of these, and we know they're with their homies. So maybe I'll get the double. Maybe I'll get Putin and Trump in the same building.
Cue all kinds of Trump drops from Roscoe right here. Watch this.
Wrong.
So the approach is different, right? I mean, you've got two. Sorry, I'm just curious about how you're going to approach.
Oh, no worries.
Because, like you said, 2-minute rounds. So there's not going to be this, stand around, feel a guy out, maybe see what happens.
3-minute rounds.
Sorry, 3-minute rounds. So, but it's going to be right to the striking. Like, is this just going to be a total war right from the start?
It's interesting, right? Because it makes obviously sense to come out and, you don't have to preserve yourself like you do for 35s. At the same time, you've got to fight maybe like 3 hours from now, and you really would want to get the guy out of there, right? Like, so, I mean, an ideal situation is sort of, like just finish the guy in the first 30 seconds, go and
do it again,
have a massage backstage and whatever, and go and be super fresh for the next one, and then hope that the guy that you're fighting in the next round goes through some like super grueling tough war, sort of like any tournament, right? Like, I mean, if you think of something like tennis, the guy, they'll, if there's in the finals, if one of the guys in the semifinals went like 5 sets into a tiebreaker, you would tend to bet against that guy if the other guy won in straight sets. So same kind of deal. You want to go out there and preserve energy, but at the same time, like, if you do that, if you try to go like balls to the walls for the whole 6 minutes, you don't recover in time for the next tournament. That's not the easiest thing in the world either. So, I mean, I think you just have to see every opponent as they come and just sort of, when you get, I always feel like as soon as I get my hands on somebody, I'll always know what kind of fight I'm in for. Like, as soon as I, like every fight where I've sort of started striking, or, we ended up in the clinch and we tie up and I can feel how strong it is, I sort of almost have a sense immediately, like, how hard it's going to be, and I'm sure that'll be the case this time around too.
Weight cuts, or are they much worried about that?
No, fighting at 135. So I'm moving up in weight. 135 is a super easy cut for me. I walk around at like 141. So yeah, I mean, I'm cutting like 6 pounds. So
like
that's
skip
probably
breakfast.
an advantage too.
And you're good.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I've cut 15 for my last fight. That's usually about as much as I cut. I cut about 15 to make 125. So I'm cutting like 6 or 7 this time. So yeah, I mean, it's not exactly break out the ice cream and cookie dough, but it's a pretty easy weight cut this time. Of course, the downside is the other people are bigger than me.
Big boys, yeah.
I mean, again, in something like this where it matters, like where your recovery matters a lot, maybe it's nice not to cut too much weight.
So I'll look for your Twitter and see if you send out some sort of link to stream it online. Hopefully we can watch it from the comfort of our own home while you battle to the death in the cage. It'll be fun to watch. Right. Oh, speaking of battling to the death in the cage, I caught All In or Knocked Out Part 6. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Great job.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, Part 6 was a fun one for us to make, I think, because, I think, Ross and maybe you agree with this, is there's a lot of sort of raw moments in there because it's the after the fight one, and it's immediately after the fight, and the emotions are still there, and like the feelings are still there.
Yeah.
Of don't want to spoil everything, but of course, obviously, we know who won and who lost. But JC obviously feeling pretty down and beaten, and there's a lot of raw emotions in that one. But even Olivier, very sort of mixed emotions in victory. So I like the feeling of those ones, and the sort of the contrast to the before the fight of how excited they are and how focused and prepared they are versus okay, now this is over, like what's the denouement sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listening to JC talk through a broken nose was really striking. I thought that was sort of almost paints the picture for you of how bad his face was, and how beaten up he was.
Another friend said that too, where he's like, I felt so bad listening to JC.
He really did.
Great shout outs to the audio producer on whoever the audio producer for that particular show was, capturing that lovely breathing through the broken nose, and his we were there. Ross and I were in his apartment, or the apartment that he was staying in. He was
Scott Seaver's apartment, actually. No big deal.
Name dropper. What are you, Phil Hamath all of a sudden?
It was Seaver's apartment, and puffy and beaten up, and he recorded that. He was a good sport about it, obviously, because I'm sure the last thing he wanted to do, honestly, was talk for 2 hours about how he just got the shit kicked out of him. And so it was cool of him to do that, and he even talked about like, geez, I hope I don't say anything stupid because I'm on like painkillers. Like he's been on painkillers the whole time that he's been doing this interview, and he's drinking beers too, so he's not like all there. So under the circumstances, so he's like, oh man, I hope I don't say anything stupid because I'm on like painkillers and alcohol, so, not stop, and not to mention the emotions. But I thought he came off very well, and very, you obviously like have to feel bad for the guy after he gets beat up real bad and loses a bunch of money on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's it. Or how to look back on the series?
We got one more.
Oh, you got one more. Okay.
We got one more. We've captured some audio. We still got a little more to do, but we're going to follow up with them sort of, many months later.
Sure.
And once I stop getting myself into these sort of fights, it took so long for Part 6 to come out because I had my own fight, which you attended, but now I got this one, so I'll get to it eventually. It's hard to work on all these projects. I got this show. I got our loyal Pokercast audience to do.
And you're retired. You're semi-retired, so it's not like you need to get up at 6 a.m. and get to work.
No, that's one of those motivations is why I enjoy projects like this, like All In or Knocked Out, and doing this show, and any other side gambling projects that I do, because it helps me not be a lazy fuck all the time, which I think I would be and fighting, which like I think I wouldn't be happy if I just like sat around and ate Doritos all day. I don't think.
Wow, that sounds like a good gig. I think I'd be happy. All right, so moving on, we got to get to a couple things quickly before we get to the mailbag. First off, the official youth hockey team of the Pokercast, the Ridge Meadows Rustlers A4 Pee Wee team, is currently undefeated. 3-0-1.
Thanks to their stellar goaltending, I'm sure.
Thanks to some fantastic goaltending from the kid. Yeah, so the undefeated season's still alive. So we can't be perfect because we have a tie, but hopefully we can keep it alive this week. Also this week, Mike Sexton. We won't do this with you in case you missed a drop. We've just got a couple of things quickly to get to before we get to the mailbag. Mike Sexton won his first WPT title in Montreal at the Playground Casino on the Kanawake Reserve this week. Awesome that, the poker world loves Mike Sexton. I mean, I think back to the very first episode of this show that Mike and I did in 2004 or 2005, late 2004. I believe it was when we were doing Rounders the poker show. Our very first episode, we thought, we got to come in with a bang. Let's go after the biggest names in poker that we can go after, and we had a 1-hour show, and we went after Daniel Negreanu, Mike Sexton, and Greg Raymer, who was the reigning world champion at the time, I believe. Wait, Raymer won 2004, right? So it was late 2004. And on our very first show, Mike Sexton was happy to come on, and he's never said no. I'm too busy for you guys. If we ever ask him, even today, he's in Punta Cana. I thought, it'd be fun to have Mike on to talk a little bit about his first WPT title. Sent him a text, and he's like, "Well, that's 4 because we're recording late tonight here, 11 o'clock local time, and it's 4 hours ahead there, so it's 3 in the morning." And he's like, "Oh, I could probably stay up." And I'm like, Mike, don't worry about it. Yeah, like he just goes out of his way. He's just that kind of guy. He's awesome, and for him to finally take down a WPT title, he's made a few final tables. Of course, he's the color comp. Well, no, he's the play-by-play guy for the World Poker Tour, the Karate Chops. So. For him to end up taking a tournament down is pretty awesome, and I think most people.
Yeah, social media was blowing up that night on a night where not very much else was sort of happening in the social media. My feed was pretty overwhelmed by this. Like you said, he's a great ambassador for a game. A guy who's been around for a very long time. Never, as far as I can remember, never been involved in any sort of controversy or sort of question of his character in any way. And in this business, that's
hard.
He's been around poker for what, like 30 years?
Yeah.
And certainly he's been through, and a lot of the times when, we're talking about not the previous generation of poker players, but like the sort of the generation of poker players that's been around a really long time, and we talk about like things like ethics and morality, and, a lot of the times we get this sort of idea that, it's not that the rules don't apply to this older generation, but it's more excusable when something happens. He has never been involved in anything remotely resembling controversy, and that's pretty impressive. And so that speaks volumes. And everybody was pretty cool it was pretty cool to see everybody blowing up on social media. I feel bad for that. Like, who was it that finished second? I totally forgot. But
nobody was cheering for him but his family. Yeah,
he definitely has
the biggest anti-sweat in the history of poker. Unfortunately,
he just put out a book, I think, last year, right?
Sexton.
Yeah.
Did he really? About the Stu Unger? No,
just stories of his life.
Oh, that's right. He did. Yeah.
We were talking about that. And it is surprising that he hasn't been in any controversies, considering he's had some big swings.
He has had some swings, no question, yeah. And he's spent a lot of time with Stu Unger when he was alive, and who knows what Stu was into at the time. But, Mike's an awesome guy. Everybody loves him. Let's move on. There was a story on Poker News, T. I don't know if you saw this. The title was Our Poker's Days Numbered, our online Poker's Days Numbered in Australia. The current gray area situation in Australia allows for sites like Stars to operate there without, jeopardizing their applications or operation in regulated countries like the USA. When Stars goes to apply for licenses and regulation in those countries, the regulators will ask, do you operate in markets where you're not supposed to be operating? When I guess it's a character check to see if these people are following the rules where they're supposed to be. So when there's a gray area situation. Sorry?
Bad actors.
Bad actors, right.
Bad actors is the famous words, which is always sort of my favorite terminology in regulated poker.
It's a good, You sound like Nick Cage all of a sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
In Canada is very similar, right? There's a gray area here in Canada. It's not expressly illegal.
Similar to Australia.
It's in Australia, very similar. There's 24 million people in Australia, so a market that's similar to the size of Canada. Pretty big deal.
And a wealthy market, right? So, I mean, you talk about 24 million. You've got a lot of countries that have way more than that. But, I mean, you're talking about in Australia, much like Canada, one of the wealthier countries per capita in the world. So
the poker's done really well.
Yep.
Right.
Poker was a big deal. Obviously, Joe Hatcham winning in 2005 set off the really huge poker boom there that ended up lasting quite a while. The Aussie Millions, which is coming up next month, still 2 months from now, rather. Getting ahead of myself. It still draws really, really great numbers, and they have the ANZPT, or I guess they don't have those regional tournaments, but they've had those going for quite a while. So yeah, Australians and Australians just like to gamble, in my experience.
So the government is moving to pass a bill that changes, it's an amendment, I believe, to their Interactive Gambling Act of 2011. Essentially cracks down on unlicensed offshore gaming. An Australian official said the government is committed to taking tougher action against illegal offshore wagering providers, and this bill does exactly that. The CFO of Amaya, Daniel Seabag, said during an earnings call in Australia, "We currently offer poker and are reviewing the applicability of proposed legislations to player-to-player games of skill." So basically, he's saying, and he also said at this time it would appear likely that if the legislation passes, we would block players from Australia. So that's not good news. I know we have a lot of listenership down in Australia. I hope you guys can get motivated and send. I'm not exactly sure how the government works in Australia, but here when you have something like this, a bill, you motivate the masses and you get people out and phoning and writing emails and letters and letting your member of parliament know that that's the case here, that that's not something that you want. So hopefully there's some motivation down there for people to do the same thing.
Otherwise, you're going to have New Zealand is going to be full of online poker refugees the way Canada is full of Americans.
All right, let's get into the mailbag.
And now,
that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Mailbag. Email number
1. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ian, the Underground Dealer here again. I'm just calling because I have a question about a hand I played tonight in a 5-10 game, and I just wasn't really sure what to do. I don't normally play 5-10, but my backer called me up and said, I want you to play in this game. I think you can win, and so go play. So I did, and I actually did wind up booking a win, which was nice, but this was the hand in question that I have for you guys. And little important back information, I have no prior hand history information on these opponents. I've never played with them before. I have only have about the hour and change of the session that I had when this hand happened. So that's I think that's important to note. So anyways, the hand 5-10, under the gun +1, limps for 10, middle position limps for 10. It gets folded around to me in the cutoff, and I look down at king, queen of diamonds, and I raise 230. Under the gun +1 calls, and middle position calls. The flop comes king 7-3, 2 spades. It gets checked around to me, and I check back for two reasons. I check for deception, and I check to balance my range here so that I can check my big hands, and I can check when I have nothing. And so the turn comes the 10 of diamonds. It gets checked around to me again, and I lead out for 65, and I get called by middle position. The river is the deuce of spades, and it gets checked to me, and I'm thinking I can bet here, baby, but I don't think so at the same time because I really can't put the guy on a hand that he's going to call a bet with this board anyways, and if I get raised, I have to fold right away. So I really just don't know what to do in this spot. I check behind, and the guy tables ace-queen offsuit, and he says to me when he tables it, oh, I just called for the gutter. And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, you called a $65 bet with a gut shot. Okay, all right. So I don't know. Could I have bet on the river there? I can't really put him on a hand that is going to call a bet there. I mean, what does he have, a weaker king? I feel like, I mean, I guess he called with the gut shot. I don't know. I'm just so confused by this hand. So let me know what you guys think. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, Ian. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Do you want me to take a run at this to you first, or do you want to go at it?
I will let you take a run at it.
Okay.
I just have one observation,
okay,
I guess, or one sort of comment on this. And
well, let's see if I get the same conclusion. How about that?
I doubt it. But,
okay.
I mean,
okay, then go.
But go for it.
No. Go ahead.
My conclusion is that, you know how we talked about how what did they have, like a $20 rake in this game or whatever?
Oh,
right. Is this the same game from 3 weeks ago where they talked about just having like this obscene like $20 rake or whatever, 10%? Like whatever stupid rake occurs in this game, it might be worth paying after all.
What do you mean?
That's my
Okay,
comment.
interesting. So I didn't.
That may shade your opinion of what you were gonna say.
Okay, no, I was gonna. I'm gonna talk differently. Okay, so let's go. King, queen of spades, sure. Cut off, raised to 30, both call, 3 to the flop. All good so far. King 7, 3, 2 spades, check, and then Ian says he checks here to balance his range because he wants to check back other hands. And I really feel like I hear this a lot, and it really strikes me as overthinking how you're going to go about playing hands, especially when you've never played in the game, you don't know people. There's not a decent, who knows how many. If you're doing this, presumably you're investing in the future hands. You're going to check back here, so you invest in times where you want to be able to check back nothing and still have some respect for it. Well, that's some nebulous concept in the future that who knows how long you're going to be playing this game. So you're trying to spend EV now for some time in the future that might not come. I'm
gonna have to break in just because this is sort of a pet peeve. So, I definitely think that what you're saying here is right, and I think you're gonna say you should just bet instead of check, which I 100% agree with, but not for the reasons you described.
Okay.
I think you are definitely right about. There's definitely this tendency to misapply this theory of like, okay, I need to be balanced, so sometimes I'm going to check top pair, and that this is not the case for that, which I think is your point. The pet peeve I have with your analysis is it doesn't matter how long he's in the game, because GTO is GTO, and the reason that GTO is GTO is that it has nothing to do with how long you'll be in the game. It's just a matter of balance. Balance is necessitated even if you're only
in every
play
situation.
In the game.
I understand that.
Even if this is the last hour of poker you ever play for your life, if something is supposed to be like a mixed strategy, like 30% checking and 70% betting, then those frequencies still apply, right? So for example, if you were
I agree with you.
If you were going to play rock paper,
yeah, right. I totally see what you're saying, and I agree with you. But when people misapply this balancing my range thing, first of all, they're never balancing their range properly. They're guesstimating. They're trying to. I'm saying most people are going to make this mistake of saying.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I think it's a mistake to just sit there and go, I'm balancing my range and I'm going to check in this tricky spot when. Right. Clearly,
and you don't have to. And I think balancing your range with top pair, like by checking back top pair specifically, is the mistake. Like if you're going to balance your weakness, checking back top set makes much more sense. On a King 7-3 board, checking back top set makes a lot of sense because you have all the good cards. It's very unlikely that somebody else has made top pair when you have top set because you own 3 of the kings. And like but when you just have top pair, you just kind of want to, your hand is very vulnerable. Like, somebody can just spike on you on the turn. Again, when you have 3 kings, like you want some guy that has like 2 4s to make a set by giving a free card on the turn. There's many more reasons to check top set than top pair.
Okay. So, he checks back. I like betting on that flop. Turn comes the 10. He check, he bets 65. He gets called by ace queen. The deuce of spades rolls off, checks, and then he's talking about. Ian mentions that what am I going to get called here by? Well, you got called in the turn by ace high, and I understand he's got nut no pair. You check the flop. He's got a gutter. Maybe the ace is good. I mean, I don't totally hate the guys calling the turn with ace queen. I don't think you liked it too much, but I honestly don't hate it. I think you're ahead of like 10 jack, or sorry, not 10 jack anymore, but jack queen, ace jack, or some other hands that would go check on the flop, and then position guy would bet on the turn. So, but when you and I always say never underestimate, and people always underestimate people's error range or their propensity to make bad calls. So. On the river, when it comes to spade, well, what's he going to call me with? What's he going to call me with? This is, again, a thing I understand that you've got to look at a hand here and say, okay, I'm going to bet, I'm going to get called by worse. But I think people always underestimate what they're going to get called by sometimes.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's important in cash games to go for thin value. I think it's very important to beat cash games. If you're going to beat cash games, to go for thin value. And yeah, sometimes you get check raise bluffed off of the hand, or sometimes you get check raised for value and pay off. But these situations are fairly rare, considering that the line that the opponent is taking, right? So how many people with a hand that beats king queen here would go check call, and then check raise? Like, what hands do that, right? Like, you're getting you're now being like very cute to be able to pull that off either as a bluff or as a value bet, because with most reasonable hands that beat you, it would just make more sense to bet the turn or bet the river, right? Like, if the guy just got lucky and turned 3 10s, he'd probably just bet the turn and bet again on the river, or maybe he like bets the turn and check raises the river. Or, like, but I think the percentage of time that he check calls a turn and then check raises the river, just hoping you specifically have top pair or have something else good, is very unlikely. So there's what you said, which is, people will just call you with like crap. I mean, obviously, like, and they'll call you with a 10. I mean, I think a huge chunk of this guy's range is a 10.
It's like ace 10, queen 10.
Yeah, there's 9-10, right? Like, there's just a lot of 10s in this guy's range. I mean, he basically has every combination of 10 except for king 10 that and they're all largely unblocked by the cards you hold. So yeah, I mean, you're definitely looking to get called by a 10 or a worse king here.
And Ian made the comment about the guy who, when he showed his hand with the ace queen, he said, "I was just calling for the gutter on the turn." And
that's exactly what like a casual home game guy would say. Right?
But it's also something that a guy would say, trying to look like I'm trying to get action or whatever, right? Like, honestly, I don't hate the guys calling the turn. And if I'm showing my hand on the river, I'm like, I had a gutter or something too, to make it look like, I didn't.
I'm up here to gamble.
I'm up here to gamble.
I don't think it's. Yeah, it's probably. I mean, if you're gonna play ace queen like that, why not just sort of bet the turn? Because I mean, if you're bluff catching, you're bluff catching with a very vulnerable hand, so you might as well just bet it yourself and hope to take it down. I mean, I don't know which position this guy was, whether he was one of the limpers or one of the blinds, but if he's one of the limpers, he should have raised coming in, first of all. Like, if you're in the field with ace queen, you shouldn't be limping. And so he and then calling on the turn when there's a 2 flush out there, I think is poor. But yeah, that's not really the point, right? The point is more that these people will call you with a lot of cheese.
Okay, to prove my point about Mike Sexton earlier, before we started recording, I sent him a text saying, "You still up? Do you want to do the show?" And didn't hear back from him. I thought, he must have gone to bed. And just while we were doing that hand, he texted me back and said, "I'm ready to go. Call me." So
let's do it.
Let's call him.
Let's interrupt the mailbag and call the WPT champion.
Okay.
The winner, the newest champion of the World Poker Tour, the partypoker.net WPT Montreal, Mr. Mike Sexton. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Good to be with you.
I was saying earlier when we were talking about your win that you were the very first guest on our podcast that we did in 2004. You'd never remember it, I'm sure, because you've done so many, but the very first time my old host and I, we did the show, we had yourself, Daniel Negreanu, and Greg Raymer on the show, and it's fun. I think people can still find that show online, and we'll get a pretty good laugh out of what we sounded like 11 years ago. But more to the point, congratulations on your big win in Montreal, your first WPT title to add to your collection of accolades. Congratulations. What was it like?
I appreciate it. Oh, just fantastic. I mean, it really was special to, when you get older, you appreciate the win so much more because you realize how tough it is, not just to make the money and make the final table, but to win tournaments. It's just so rare, and I don't care how great a player you are. It's a long time between wins out there on the tour, and so to knock off a WPT title was very special to me.
I don't want to rub it in, Mike, but I had to look a few years back in your Hendon Mob results there to find your last win. I know you don't play near as much as you used to, but nice to get the monkey off the back.
No, it was probably 10 years ago when I played Daniel heads up in the WSOP Tournament of Champions.
Right.
For me, and I was fortunate to come out on top in that, and I'm not sure I've won since then, in fact, in any big tournament anyway.
So, obviously, you're the lead commentator on the World Poker Tour for so many years, Mike. Watching these guys and going through the final tables, hands all the time. I mean, you're watching some of the best players in the world play, short-handed, six-handed, full ring, all kinds of different stuff. It's almost got to be like, watching a training video online. You get to watch some pretty good players and their hole cards the whole time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It certainly helped me, I'm certain. And, I've seen every final table in the history of the World Poker Tour. I see who's winning. I see why they're winning. And truthfully, it's just the young, aggressive players that, that are just not afraid to risk their chips, and take a chance. And that's, I'm talking about even early on in a poker tournament. For years and years, I played tournament poker, and the theory was just to survive, and then hopefully late in the tournament you get a run of cards and you get lucky and you can win the tournament. But nowadays that's not the case. The young players understand how power of chips are and what aggression means, and they're willing to risk their tournament early on, the first level or two, to take a chance to get some chips where they can bully the table around, and in case they get to the final table, they'll be one of the chip leaders. And all the great young players today recognize that all the money in tournament poker is in the first three places, and, to get there, you got to take some risk, and they're willing to do it. I've seen it happen, and obviously we all know that play poker, the big difference in poker today and in yesteryear is the aggressiveness of the players. And certainly back in the 80s and 90s, you'd play, there'd be one raise before the flop, people would call, and you'd play the pot out from there. Now they 3-bet, they 4-bet before the flop. It's much more aggressive. And, the game is just much different now. And there's so many good players out there now, it's just difficult.
Yeah, Mike, Terrence here. Your answer reminds me sort of course, your old friend from back in the day, Stu Unger, who sort of revolutionized aggression in poker. Now it sort of feels like there's 7 Stu Ungers at every table, just with the amount of aggression. Do you feel that as you were going through this tournament and getting deep, did you feel really comfortable with the pace? Like, do you feel that your game is sharp enough to stay with the younger players and the guys who play a lot more than you these days all the way through, or was there any point at which you didn't quite feel comfortable? Talk us through the experience, because you were a professional poker player for a very long time. Now you're a great ambassador of the game, but maybe you don't get as much time to play as you want. How did you feel going through the field?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I recognize that today's young players, they're better players than I am. There's no question about it, playing no limit hold'em anyway. And I understand that, but, I understand on any given day that I compete with any of them. And, in this particular tournament, I just happen to be very fortunate. I believe it was destiny for me to win this tournament. Never in the history of my life, in a 30-year tournament career, have I been as fortunate that I was in this tournament, in terms of several times, once each day, the first 4 days of the tournament, I was all in at risk with the worst hand. I was dominated on 4 different occasions each of the first 4 days, and I outdrew my opponent to stay alive in the tournament. Once I hit a one-outer in a 3-handed pot, one card is all I could hit on the river with 1 to go, and I won that on day 2, and I said to myself, it's destiny. I really believed it was, and certainly it proved to be that way. So, I've never, ever, ever done that in the history of my life. Usually I'm the one that's getting outdrawn and getting knocked out, and it's just frustrating. But in this particular tournament, every time I was all in or I was in a race, I won it, and that's just never happened to me before.
All right, I want to talk about that later, because Terrence and I have a bone to pick with you about this protection poker thing that you've been talking about. And there you go, the one-outer that you hit, you wouldn't. If it was protection poker, you wouldn't win the whole pot.
If it's been a protection poker tournament, I promise you I would have never won it. I had to get back some tips because I outdrew my opponent about 4 times.
Right.
Maybe 5 times, in fact, in the tournament, where I was dominated, where they'd have been protected, and they'd have got some money back.
Okay, we'll get to that in a sec. I want to ask you about so obviously you and Vince are the commentators for the World Poker Tour for so many years, do such a great job, and Tony as well, who's in there, and he's playing in the tournaments yourself. You've made a few final tables, you've gone on some runs, and when you do make the final table like this, obviously they're missing their lead play-by-play guy. What's the structure there? Are they happy about it, or are they kind of going, we need Mike in the booth?
No, they were thrilled about it, and they're very excited, and the whole crew was excited, and the WPT staff was excited, and I really felt a lot of support there, and they recognize that it's really good when me or Tony or Vince makes the final table at the World Poker Tour, and certainly to win a title, it's going to bring much bigger ratings probably to the show when it airs, in February or March, whenever it's going to air. And so nobody's upset about it at the World Poker Tour for sure. And the first 7-8 season on the World Poker Tour, Vince and I weren't allowed to play in any
That's right.
events. And we'd literally fly in on the day before the final table and fly out the day after. Then when they were going to renew the contracts, which were 10-year contracts at the time, with casino partners, the next time around they said, look, we'll bring our talent in from day one. We'll have them there the whole week. And, it'll make a more, exciting experience for your players, and it'll feel more like a WPT event, et cetera, et cetera. And so now once we had to go from day one, they said, if you guys want to play the tournaments now, you can. And so now we started playing them, and, I still enjoy playing. I love competing against the young guys, and certainly this week was actually the highlight of my WPT career for sure.
And what are you going to do with? So you won a whole bunch of money Canadian, 300, 400,000. Was it Canadian money though? It's all different colors. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, I think it was like 405,000 Canadian, which is probably about 317,000 US. And I've got a lot of things I can do with it. So it's good, but. Money comes and goes, but getting your name on the Champions Cup and being a WPT champion, that's for life, and I say that to everybody all the time, and when you're 80 years old in the rocking chair on the porch, you reflect back on the highlights of your career and memories, and when you win is what you remember, and it's not about the money, it's just that you absolutely won, and the feeling of winning is just so good.
Then you jump on a plane. We reach you tonight in Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic. That's not a small trip.
It's presently 4 in the morning, Adam.
It's 4 a.m. The poor guys should be fast asleep.
It's 3 in the morning. It's not so bad. But
oh, my bad.
It's 3 in the morning here, and I didn't have 30 minutes to pack my suitcases and catch the shuttle bus to come down to Punta Cana here. I didn't have any time to enjoy my victory, and then we started a WPT event the next day. And I went out today of the tournament, so, it's the old slogan, one day a champion and 2 days later a chump in tournament poker, that's the way it is. So.
Hey, that's the best way to be. If you always want to bust out right away or go all the way deep. You don't want to, why stick around for 2 days and cash for no money?
Yeah, I mean, and, Terrence mentioned it before, as far as in the moment of playing an entire tournament through and the process that and how hard that is. But you're jumping on a plane, you're going down the Dominican Republic, you're doing the television. That's going to, be a long process. You're jumping on a plane. The next Party Poker is in Prague, I believe, at the beginning of December. Then you're back to Vegas at the Five Diamond, over to Borgata. I mean, this is a young man's schedule, Mike. A 25-year-old might get a little bit tired of this one.
Yeah, I actually won't be going to Prague, though. So.
Oh, okay. That'll help.
So this weekend, I'm actually going back to Columbus, Ohio for the Ohio State-Michigan game. I'm real excited about that. And then I head back to Vegas. And then comes the Bellagio tournament. So, it's going to be a good couple weeks there coming up, too.
We mentioned it earlier, this protection poker thing. We talked about it a few weeks ago, Terrence and I, and we were wondering, the thought process of what was the goal was here, because where there's this thing about protection poker, again, for those that didn't hear, if you get all in and you're a certain favorite, you're going to automatically win. I believe it's 25% of the pot, and then if the other person sucks out, they win 75. Can you walk us through what you thought when you heard this idea?
Yeah, when they came to me with it about a year and a half ago, it seemed like a great concept to me. I think it takes the frustration out of bad beats in poker, which is going to keep more people coming back to play. I think that in addition to that, it adds more skill to the game. And I believe it keeps players in money longer, which is good for the casino. So to me, it seemed like a win-win for everybody in protection poker. Now, for those of you that don't know what it is when somebody is all in and called before the river card. So it's like in a tournament, whether it's a cash game or a tournament, doesn't matter. If there's no more betting to be done before the river card, the cards are turned face up. And if one player is a 65% favorite or more, meaning a dominant favorite, a 2-1 favorite. The person that's in front gets protection. And if they lose the pot and get outdrawn, for example, say you have aces against kings and all the money goes in before the flop, and now you turn the cards up, well, the aces are protected here, meaning that if they get outdrawn where a king comes somewhere along the line and the kings win the pot, the two aces will get back 20% of the pot, not 25%. It can be set up to any percent you want to in any casino, but we set it up to start with at 20%. And so you're still in action. You're not out of the tournament, and you're not out of the cash game, and you're still in action. So to me, it seems like a great concept, and I don't know why anybody that hasn't tried it would object to it.
I guess, Mike, the thought here is that, we talk a lot about how amateur players or recreational players are at a bit of a disadvantage, and these are the guys who are usually getting in bad when there's a big pot. And so if you over time, if a pro and an amateur play 100 pots, if the pro gets it in good more often than the amateur does, and you're shading it now towards a situation where the pro has, more equity. So when he gets sucked out on, he's kind of got a second life. Doesn't make it tougher for actually the recreational player, the amateur player, to win in the long run. I think that's a lot of people's criticism.
Well, I mean, many recreational players play extremely tight. So when they get their money in with aces or kings against two queens or two jacks or whatever it might be, if they lose the pot, they're extremely frustrated. They're discouraged with poker. They may not come back again. It's an aggravating experience for them. Whereas if they get some of the money back where they can still continue to play, they're happy. If, on the other hand, they get in with a worse hand and they lose the pot, they're not that discouraged, and they understand that's the way it goes. And the truth of it is, protection doesn't come up that often when you're playing. It only comes up about 3% of the time, and even then, the best hand wins most of the time. So it really doesn't happen that often, but when it does, and it happens to you, you're very happy to get something back out of the pot where you can stay in action. So, I really believe it could be beneficial to poker. It could help players. It'll help take the frustration out of the bad beats in the game. And I think once people play it and see it and try it, you understand that it doesn't affect the game at all. The game is the same, and it just adds an element of discouraging the frustration that you experience when you take a horrible beat.
Fair enough. Speaking of improving the player experience for amateurs, one thing that I'll disagree with you on the protection poker, but I'm definitely going to agree with you on one thing that you've talked about for years, which is how slow people are playing in poker tournaments these days. I'm looking up, interviews that you did back in 2012 saying there's got to be a shot clock. We've got to speed up the game. And I'm 100% in agreement with this. It's an incredibly frustrating part of playing poker tournaments for me, how slow the pace of the game is. And so, you just finished, playing multiple days of a big buy-in tournament. Two parts to the question, I guess. First, how did you feel about the pace of play throughout the tournament? And second, are we still in a position where we need a shot clock, and are we close to getting it, or what hurdles do you might see about shot clocks? Because I know you've been an advocate of it for a long time, and so have I.
Well, I have been, and I think that speeding up play, getting out more hands per level, only makes the game more fun and beneficial for everybody. That's my feeling about it. And the guys that want to talk to their opponent and stare them down and all the BS that we know that goes on, I don't think it's necessary in the game, and it slows the game down and makes it more frustrating for players at the table. I mean, if you're at a table, for example, with a William Kassouf, and this is a kid I like. I met him in England and played with him over there just a couple weeks ago. But he likes to talk at the table, as we saw during the final table of the main event of the World Series of Poker. He slows play down, and if he's winning, other players are going to start talking and doing the same thing. And if you're at a table with those talkers like that, you might get out 15 hands per hour, whereas the table next to you gets out 35 hands per hour. And it's very frustrating if you're sitting at one of those tables where they're delaying play like this, where you're getting out fewer hands per hour. I don't think it's fair, and I think it's horrible. And all you have to do to remedy that is just get an action clock in there. And we did it in the WPT Tournament of Champions. The response of the players was 90% or more, probably even more than that, very favorable. They loved it. And anybody that plays with it, I think, would agree with that they think, wow, this is great. Why didn't we do this, 10, 15 years ago?
Do you think it's a possibility for that, say, down the road, every WPT event might be a shot clock? I mean, not just, tournament champions or not just stud tournaments, but, if every WPT stopped or even eventually,
I would love to see that. Not only every WPT event, I would love to see every poker tournament in the world and every cash game in the world implement the action clock.
Yeah. How can we do that? You're one of the most influential people in poker. If you can't make it happen, who's
Nobody
gonna do
can.
it?
Yeah, look, if I was the World Poker Commissioner, it would be in there tomorrow. Believe me.
Mike, thinking back to, we go back to the Stu Unger days, the early days of No Limit Hold'em. Did we see this? I mean, was that a thing of guys talking, taking forever in their hands, or did the players kind of take care of that themselves?
Honestly, back in the old days, I don't remember that kind of delay and talk and slow play and staring your opponent down and mucking your hand after 5 minutes. It just didn't exist back in the day. And honestly, since we started bringing up the action clock and the shot clock, it hasn't really, in the games that I played in fact, in the tournaments I played in, since a lot of discussion was made about it, and since we implemented the action clock in the Tournament of Champions, I really haven't seen a lot of slow play at the table. So I do think it's getting better. There's no question about it. And, all you have to do to shut down the talkative players and the ones that stall and delay is just implement the action clock. They can only talk for 30 seconds, and then they have to act on their hand. So, what do you care what they say in 30 seconds time? But, it's when they delay and stall and my concern is when you see the really good players like a Daniel Negreanu, he likes to talk, William Kassouf, he likes to talk, Alex Keating, he likes to talk. All these guys that like to talk at the table, if they're winning players, what's going to happen is other players are going to try to, act like they do, and they're going to start trying to talk to their opponents, thinking it's going to help them. Whether or not it does or not is questionable, but they're going to think that. So now they're going to start talking, and now players are going to take forever, all over the table. So that's my main concern is if some guys do it, everybody's going to start doing it, and then where we're going to be.
Yeah, indeed. Mike, a couple years ago, you and I at the Matt Savage Invitational Golf Tournament, we tied for first in the big scramble. The scramble's the big one where, there's a Calcutta, we spend a bunch of money, and we ended up tying with a few other teams, but we had a lot of fun. You missed the last one, last year's Savage Invitational. Are you going to go next year? Let's put this scramble team back together.
Yeah, I'd like to do it. I love it. I had a schedule conflict last year where I couldn't go, but hopefully that doesn't exist this year because I enjoy playing in it. To me, it's a real fun 4 or 5 days, and certainly, you love playing golf and, having a little action on it. What could be more fun in life than that?
No kidding. That was a lot of fun. And that year was special. We were in California, in Carmel by the sea, of course, Pebble Beach, and all the wonderful golf courses around there. That was the highlight of my golfing life. I have to say it. It was fantastic to have played those courses that I'd watched on TV my whole life and had a great time. This year's in Arizona, I believe. So looking forward to that in May for sure.
All right, great.
Good fun. Thanks so much, Mike, for joining us. Continued success on the World Poker Tour, playing and commentating, of course, and we will talk to you soon.
Well, I appreciate it, guys, and thanks for having me on. And I finished a book this year called Life's a Gamble.
Oh, that's
so
right.
Listeners to get a copy of that. If they like poker, golf, gambling stories of any kind, they're going to love Life's a Gamble. So I'd recommend anybody get it. It's really a fun, entertaining read.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people who like stories about the early days of the WPT, Doyle Brunson, Stu Unger, all the old days of poker, I know sitting around and having drinks and dinner with you or being on the golf course, I just, anybody who's around you soaks those stories up. We love to hear them, but you've got them all in Life's a Gamble. If anybody wants to check that out, Life's a Gamble is the book by Mike Sexton, and order that up for Christmas. Perfect timing. Thanks, Mike.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Always to talk to Mike. Great to hear some of the stuff that's going on for him. And, Terrence, I mean, like I said, everybody loves Mike. And whenever he wins, like you were saying, the guy who finished second probably had a tough day because nobody was cheering
Benny
for him.
Chen, by the way, I looked it up while we were talking to him. Benny Chen, who is most notable for being the first ever person to win the Millionaire Maker. Back in 2013,
Wow.
Benny Chen won the Millionaire Maker. So he finished second here for about 200 and something thousand Canadian, and yeah, he's a Canadian, so he'll actually be able to spend those dollars and like Mike Sexton convert them into real money, and so yeah, but so I'm sure a tough player too. I mean, you don't win the Millionaire Maker without being a real tough player. So congrats to Mike.
Awesome catching up with Mike.
Although if you can't get a shot clock through, who the hell can?
Yeah, he's the man. He is the guy who could do it. All right, so we're going to take a break there. We're going to come back. We got a ton more email to get to, the mailbag, and a couple of hands from Roscoe's return to the PLO streets. Looking forward to that. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by RunItOnce.com. More after this. SharkScope can now add free money to your bankroll, and all you have to do is be an overachiever. SharkScope.com has a fun tab on every graph that says achievements. They're very attainable goals, like won a tournament of more than $100 or played 100 tournaments in a month. Sounds fun, right? Well, now with our partner PKR, you can earn money for those achievements. Simply play on PKR, turn over the achievement cards, rack up points, and win your share of 2,000 euros. Also, you'll be entered into our 1,500 euro free roll just for getting 5 points. See all the details on sharkscope.com and click on the Achievements Challenge in the menu. And don't forget to opt in to participate and also get in on our weekly $10,000 draw. Sharkscope.com, the best for over 10 years. Track your statistics, avoid the sharks, and find easier tournaments at sharkscope.com.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month.
Hey, PokerCast fans, don't forget to follow me, Adam, and Ross on the old social medias. I'm at TChanPoker on Twitter, and once in a while I'll even talk poker if I'm not trying to hit him in the face. If Adam ever gets home from hockey practice, he tweets at PokerCast Adam, and Ross is at PokerCast Ross whenever he's sweating the Chicagos. Hit us up and try to keep it to 140 or less. I mean, fewer.
Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
Hey, T-Chan here. Now that you've been listening to me and Adam give you the latest news in the poker world, it's time for you to give your 2 cents. So come hang out with the rest of the PokerCast Nation on the forums at pokercast.2plus2.com. There you can leave feedback about the show, give the world your hot takes on this week's stories, or just leave Roscoe your best sports betting advice. He needs the help. That's the forums at pokercast.2plus2.com. The best part? It's available no matter how many miles you are from Kells.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by RunItOnce.com. All right, let's get back into the emails.
Email number 2.
This is Joe in Los Angeles, where it's mostly sunny with a high chance of variance. I'm the out-of-shape 40-year-old who challenged Terrence to a prop bet fight a while ago. Well, I'd like to offer a hypothetical buyout to that hypothetical fight because it turns out T-Chan is kind of a badass. I'm writing again to reload on some Pokercast Run Good, and I want to vent about some of the stuff that tilts the shit out of me in live games. First thing is a no three-way chop rule that some California casinos have. The rule is that only the blinds can chop before the flop. So if someone limps in and no one raises, the 3 players are forced to play for some tiny amount because the casino takes a rake in the flop. I openly defy this greedy policy by just getting everyone to pull our money back, and if the other players want to chop, not only is this unfair rule basically unenforceable, it actually discourages players from limping, and we make money when weak players limp. Second thing I hate is when people who are not even in a hand are permitted to ask and see a losing showdown hand. Asking to see a losing hand is about the worst poker etiquette there is. This makes getting slow rolled seems like a free massage. Maybe it's allowed to prevent collusion or something, but most of the people I play with aren't nearly sophisticated enough to collude with each other, except for when I'm at the table with two young players from Eastern Europe. I always think they're colluding, or maybe they're just really good. Either way, I don't like it. I also hate the sound of people chewing food, and I can't stand when people get mad at the dealer for the random outcome of the cards. I want to say, hey, asshole, why is it the dealer's fault that you called in the turn with bottom pair and a gut shot, then bricked? And speaking of dealers, I hate them when they scream chips or seat open right in my fucking ear. Okay, I feel a little better now. Thanks for the rant. You guys are awesome. Best podcast ever. What do you think?
Positivity in that.
Yeah,
email.
Joe's venting a little bit there. The no three-way chop rule is interesting. First of all, I don't know about you, T, but when I was playing a lot in California, I had a personal rule where I didn't chop. I didn't.
When I was playing in California, I had a personal rule that I didn't play in any games that were only three-handed to the flop.
Right. There should be a reason for leaving.
I guess poker is different these days.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just I sat and waited for an hour to sit at this table, and I'm paying the rake, and I'm sitting down playing 30 hands an hour. I'm not going to chop it, and if you start chopping with some people and you don't chop with others and that kind of thing, there's always controversy that starts. So I just had this rule where I just said I don't chop.
I think Bart Hansen.
Yeah, I mean.
Sorry. Bart says that he always chops because if you see a flop, then there's a drop. If it's no flop, no drop, then you're saving like $5 or whatever.
I get it. I just I don't know. It was just the way I did it. T, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably plus EV to chop in most lower stakes California games that have a high drop, for sure. But it's, I think, not only what you said, which is like, I'm here to play poker, not to chop. I mean, I kind of see, and I hate taking the sides of poker rooms and casinos, especially the ones who rake a lot. But I mean, I kind of see their position on this.
Sure.
So, there's not even an obligation, sort of, in any real sense, to allow chops to begin with, even between the small blind and the big blind, right? I mean, theoretically, all that's doing is probably one day some guy came up with the idea when it gets folded around that the small blind would say, okay, I'll just fold my hand if you give me half of my bet back. And the big blind said, okay, and then that's how chops were born. I imagine when the first chop was ever created, that's how it happened. And then you're starting to get into, well, okay, this guy limps, and then now the small blind completes. Oh, we've got a three-way flop. Now we're going to chop that. Like, there is a bit of a slippery slope regarding that. So I kind of understand the casino's point of view. It's like they are in the business of raking the pots, and so if no pots aren't getting played, then they're not taking any rake. It would still be a friendly customer service policy, I guess, for them to allow this. So I sort of understand the pet peeve. And like I said, I hate taking the casino's sides on these sort of things, but kind of get where they're coming from on this one.
Email number 3.
Mike from Canuckville, Canada, just over 2 flights from the Chicagos from Kells, writes us. I have a few comments from previous shows that I've been collecting for some time. First, I can't believe how low your numbers were to use the floss pick found by the dumpster. Maybe it's just one of those things for me, but it would well be into the 5 figures, if not 6. My wife used my toothbrush by accident one day, and it went straight into the trash. The thought, the thought of using a toothbrush used by someone whose butt I've licked is still disgusting. Oh, jeez, can we read this? I never read these emails before we go
me either.
On,
This is great. So people, when you send in emails, you can just send in stuff that, we're just going to read it.
If you...
Yeah, I don't get that either. Well, let's finish. We'll let him finish the email first.
I'm not sure I want to. I will finish. Second, I used to be like you, and I thought I was an AP microwave user by hitting 111 for a minute. Then I realized 66 is more accurate and also 1 less click. I do that too. I was very disappointed with the WSOP coverage this year. There was nowhere near the optimal amount of "he just won a poker bracelet" drops. It cracks me up every time. Now for a question.
He just won a poker bracelet.
The local casinos here charge $6 plus $2 for the bad beat at 1-3 and 5 plus 2 for 3-6 limit with a kill. Are these games beatable, or is the rake too high? Love the show. Keep up the good work. That's Mike. So apparently here somewhere in Canada, they're also raking absorbent. Elsewhere in Canada,
$2 bad beat bugs the shit out of me. That's
okay. Let's go through this. First of all, the used flosser by the dumpster. I think I said I'd do it for $500. I still can't believe people won't do it for $500. That's beyond me. Anyway,
there's no way you get me to do that for $500.
My wife,
$500 is too low.
My wife using my toothbrush. Like, this is the person that you're kissing every day. You got presumably your tongue buried in her mouth.
Apparently, if you're mine.
And yeah, I'm not going to go there, but I'm saying, I don't get that. The AP microwave, I'm now going to do the 6-6 instead of the 1-1-1 that you guys taught me. That's awesome. And as far as the question goes on the games and are they beatable, so $8 for basically a drop at a 1-3 and 5, so 7 with the 3-6 limit. 7 with the 3-6 limit, so more than a big blind. I mean, the players would have to be pretty bad, I think, but I think one of the...
big bet.
What's that?
3-6 limit means it's 1 and 3 blinds and 3 and 6 limits, so that's more than a big bet, not just a big blind.
Yeah. So, I mean... definitely a really high rake. I think the game would have to be really good long term to be beatable. But I think one of the things we've learned over the years is that even games that charge a $20 drop in a PLO game, for instance, in the right circumstances, can be beat. Now limit is different. You're gonna have
that's a lot harder to beat the limit.
You're gonna have to have a lot of people seeing a lot of flops. That would be pretty tough. T, your thoughts?
Right. It's one of these things where you've got. If there are enough people willing to pay this rake, then that might be, itself signify that there's enough value in the game, right? So, you reach the point where, like, if 4 or 5 people, if you start getting 4 or 5 good players in the game, then it becomes really tough. But yeah, the limit games, it really, the critical thing is the number of players seeing the flop probably has to be like 4 or 5 regularly, because people just can't make large enough post-flop mistakes unless they're just like folding all the time. They can't make large enough mistakes like they can in no limit to justify it. Whereas if you just have like 2 really bad players in a no limit game that are going to stack off, like getting it in super, super bad, then it's definitely beatable.
Email number
004, hit my Jones up on the low.
Andrew writes, one sec, I'm sending a message here to Ross for the production. Inside the Pokercast studio here. Andrew writes, what's up, guys? Long-time listener, first-time emailer. I'm currently writing from over here in Vermont. Chainsaws, we also operate them properly.
Fuck yeah, bud.
I'm a 1.4 million Tinder swipes from my ex-girlfriend, Kels. Just writing to see if you guys can encourage listeners to send in more degen stories. For example, what's the most money you've ever blasted off at a casino in one night not playing poker? I know Terrence has to have at least one story of him getting hammered and blacking out only to wake up 10K in the hole. One night on Carbon Poker, I turned 40 into 2,600, only to donate it back playing 3-6 no limit in about 2 days. To put that in perspective, I'm a shitty 25-cent, 50-cent player at best. Anyways, thanks for the awesome content. I'm driving 46 hours to San Diego next week, so I'm counting on you guys for some listing material. That's good. T, give us your most degen. You got to have some. At some point, you had to have done something stupid with money.
I've done stupid things with money. I just don't know if any of them sort of qualify in that sense. I mean, most of them are just like really bad sports bets or like really bad investment decisions, and But honestly, like, if you talk about leaks, and you and I talked about this many times, the biggest leak that you can probably have in poker, in the gambling world, is not necessarily even like specifically gambling. It's just lending money to people who don't pay it back.
Have you done that before?
That's probably where the largest black hole of money in my life has gone. So, I mean, yeah, I wish I had, because honestly, like, if you gave me the choice of, you're going to lose like X amount of money, like, you're gonna like wake up in the back alley of a strip club and you don't have any memory, where and your like pockets are empty, whereas you knew you had the 35,000 the night before. Like, that's probably a better story than I just lent it to a dude and he didn't pay me back. I mean, sorry to disappoint, but that's about it.
Lending money to dudes that didn't pay you back is a leak, no question. I think we've all done it. I think I've told the story a few times on the show. I had an $18,000 bankroll in Vegas.
No, you haven't told this story in a long time.
Haven't I?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a good one.
For those that have just started listening to the podcast in the last year, I was in Vegas playing. I think I was there for months at a time. This is back, 2007, 8. And I had I think an $18,000 bankroll, and I was playing 15-30 limit at the Bellagio. And if I ever lost $1,000, if I ever got stuck 1,000 instead of sitting in a 15-30 game for 70 hours straight to get even, I decided that it would be a really good idea to go play craps and get to to get the 1,000 back as fast as possible and then go back and play poker. So
you're almost certainly going to lose money.
It worked several times, of course, because this is the way it goes with the martingale. I'd go out, I'd get stuck at 1,000, go out, win the 1,000, go back and play poker, and everything was fine. Well, one session, I decided that I was going to go out there, and after getting stuck at 1,000, and I ended up losing 17,000 of my $18,000 bankroll. So I had to go to sleep with almost no money. So yeah, that's my biggest I learned my lesson in one night playing craps at the Bellagio. I think I'm not the only one, hopefully, to have done that. All right, shall we move on to the next one?
I have a story as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so...
Super degen?
It was pretty degen.
Okay.
So a couple weeks ago...
I love that it was a couple of weeks ago. That's the best part of the story.
Maybe not a couple.
Well, the thing is, the difference between Ross and you and I, Adam, is that Ross is still young.
That's right.
Still
I was older than Ross.
Leeway on the...
Yeah, I was older than Ross is now when I did my stupid thing at the Bellagio. So
yeah,
sure
this was the night that we watched the final table, and I was talking to you guys about the Cowboys Eagles game. I think I had like. Let's say I had like 2,000 in my
sports betting account,
in my Pinnacle account or something, and I lost probably like 1,000 that day on various sports bets.
Baseballs.
Yeah, so a bunch of sources that I used for researching football said that the under in the primetime Sunday night game was the play.
Okay.
So I had a small parlay with Dallas to win by 6 points, and I bet the rest of the account on the under.
Just chunked it all up.
So the game went over in the fourth down, threw the Hail Mary touchdown for the game to go over, and I lost my whole account. I was pretty depressed. And then the next day, it came down to the Chicago Bears, just an awful team on the money line to beat the Vikings based on another tip that I read. And they won. So I won the parlay, and I ran the account from like $300 into $4,000 that day.
Wow.
So in 24 hours I had...
You went from 2,000 to bust to 4,000.
Yeah, then I eventually lost it all back.
Ah, there you go. As you do.
Yeah.
Email number.
It's number 5.
Daniel writes, "Hi guys, I am writing from Newcastle, New South Wales, Australia, 17,172 kilometers from Kells. I was playing 2-3 cash a week or so ago, and I think I tremendously misplayed a hand, but would like your take. I was in the small blind with the ace-10 of hearts, middle position raised to 20, and the button re-raised to 60. I folded. What was the right play here? I had $300, middle position at 170, and the button had me covered. I figured that calling was bad, as even if the middle position didn't re-raise, I'd be spending 20 big blinds to try and hit against likely a bigger ace. I figured there'd be a chance that the middle position might be re-raised, and I might waste my $60 or be faced with a decision to call off the whole 300 with ace-10. That was my thinking, but I think I was applying tournament thinking to a cash game. The reason why it was that it was so painful was what happened after I folded, but I won't tell you about that. Daniel, I don't think you have anything to lose sleep over. There's no good reason to play ace-10 of hearts from out of position against 2 raises at a full table.
I think Ross is going to sum up my thoughts perfectly with this drop.
Under the gun, you don't raise. You limp in there.
No, that doesn't actually happen. No, I agree with you, T. I don't think that's misplayed at all. You snap fold that ace-10 in that spot. Absolutely. Yeah. No question.
Email number
6.
Hey guys, this is Joe writing you from the variance capital of America, Los Angeles. So I was just visiting South Florida where I played a lot of poker at the Isles Casino. Great room, by the way. Anyway, they recently started spreading a game I'd never played called Crazy Pineapple. The blinds are 2-5, the buy-in is 400 to 1,000, so it's pretty deep, and it's basically played the same way as No Limit Hold'em, except you dealt 3 cards, see the flop, bet, then discard 1 card, see the turn, bet, etc. Let me just sum up this game in one word. Holy shit. That's 2 words, by the way. Holy shit. Discovering Crazy Pineapple was the greatest thing that's happened to me since puberty and Playboy. Grinding No Limit day in, day out can be just that, a grind. I was watching some lockup show, and an inmate described prison as a very long stretches of boredom interrupted by moments of sheer terror. And I thought, that sounds a lot like No Limit Hold'em. If Hold'em is the prison, then Crazy Pineapple is the key. Or for those of us who felt we missed the boat or just don't like the variants of PLO, Crazy Pineapple is the key. I saw quite a few people sit down and play this for the first time and get hooked immediately, same as me. For the recreational player, this game is fun. Is so fun and dynamic because it offers more ways to make hands. For the skill player, this game is completely crushable because it seems like no-limit Hold'em leaks are amplified and even more exploitable. Similar to what I've discovered with Big O, the extra card means there's more room for fun and more room for mistakes. So here's where you guys come in and need advice on how to start the Crazy Pineapple Revolution. Once it catches, this will be one of the most popular games in poker. I just need some help. I spoke to my local floor guy, and he says I could possibly host a game. I once got a job in college to be a waiter at Chili's, but first I had to host for 2 weeks. I got fired after 5 days. You see where I'm going here. Probably not host material. But let me know your thoughts on this game and the coming revolution. Let's change the world. You guys kick ass. Thanks. I think Joe has missed the boat for about 20 years because that game has been around for a long time. Crazy Pineapple.
Almost exactly that long. And it's ironic that he's from L.A. because
it's spread in every casino.
Had its heyday. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, Crazy Pineapple's been around for a long time. It's a good question why it hasn't, in the similar vein that people have moved to Parliament Omaha, people really haven't flooded to Crazy Pineapple from No Limit Hold'em as a way to play No Limit with a twist. I can't explain why. I think Crazy Pineapple's a lot of fun, but yeah,
it is. I think it's actually plays fairly tight when it's being played well. The problem is you have what you have in Crazy Pineapple, and it's been a really long time since I played. What you have in Crazy Pineapple, if people are playing well, is you have a situation where, like PLO, you're afraid of the nuts, but unlike PLO, it's not super easy to draw out on the nuts because you're discarding. And right. I don't know if we ever actually explained what Crazy Pineapple is while we're discussing this, so we probably should. Oh yeah, okay, it was in the email, but yeah. Because you discard after the flop, you don't have these massive combo draws that you often get in PLO, where oftentimes you are in PLO with the top set or the nut straight, and there's 27 cards on the turn that can scare you or something like that. You don't get these kind of situations in Crazy Pineapple, so it's a little less gambly than PLO, so it doesn't quite scratch the gambling itch that PLO has, and doesn't create the pots that PLO has, and it's a little more nutty than Hold'em because since people start with 3 cards, you're a little more scared of whatever the present nuts is. I kind of think that was the death knell for Crazy Pineapple. But Crazy Pineapple Aiderbreader doesn't suffer from this problem, so a lot of for a long time Crazy Pineapple was playing Aiderbreader.
Email number
7.
Sorry, my bad. I was just thinking about an addendum to the Crazy Pineapple story, which is my very good friend Jared Enkenman back in 2000. If you want to look it up, I remember that he wrote Crazy Pineapple for advanced players.
Oh, there you go.
And the date on that post was May 17th, 2000. You can Google it. Just type in Crazy Pineapple for advanced players in there. Moving on. Yes, email number 7. Jay writes, "Hey, Terrence and Adam, love the podcast. Regarding the Borgata Ivey's decision, I'd like to know a bit more detail on how it's such an advantage to read cards in this game." The game, of course, being Baccarat. "Because the dealer does all the work and the players aren't allowed further bets once the hand starts. Dealers use a shoe in Baccarat, so players can only see one of the 4 cards in the hand, and bets are placed before the hand is dealt. What's the point in knowing a card's value if no more betting is allowed after the cards are out? I suppose that knowing part of one's hand will be an 8 or a 9 is certainly helpful, but most of the time the peekaboo card has more chance of being a low, picture, or middle number. Am I missing something, or is that all there is to it? I can understand how knowing or reading or marking cards in blackjack could be an advantage, because a player who always knows the next card will be unbeatable in the long run. Respect your guys' opinions. I hope that's a clear question, and maybe it's a question other people had as well. Adam, I'm not the most experienced Baccarat player in the world. I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you run point.
Well, yeah, I think he alludes to it, Jay. When you do see it's the first card. When you know the first card coming off the top, and that's all you're going to know, you have a very big advantage, because if it is an 8 or a 9. Which I can't remember if the player or the banker gets the first card. If I had to bet, I think it would be the player. So if the player, let's say it is, and is getting an 8 or a 9 in the first card, there's a much greater chance that he's going to get a natural 8 or a natural 9, because of course If he starts with an 8 or 9, there's a good chance he's going to have a face card come behind. So
3 out of 13 cards. 3 out of every 13 cards is a face card. So, well over a quarter, almost a quarter of the time, you're just going to have a natural 8 or natural 9.
4 of 13 cards, 10, Jack, Queen, or King.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So,
sorry.
All the monkeys. Don't forget the monkeys. That's what they're called. Knowing that one card just swings your advantage in your favor so big. And you can alternate. So if you see the dealer hasn't done anything, you see that there's an 8 or a 9 coming, you can easily max bet on the player. I believe it's the player who gets the first card, and you can adjust your bet accordingly to that first card. Big advantage.
Right, and the funny thing is so I think the art to this more is not like the proper strategy, because I think you pretty much just nailed it, but is like the cover play and the sort of the stealth side of because you're going to vary your bets, right? Because if your first card is a deuce 3 or 4 or whatever, something that's not valuable to you, you're going to want to lower your bet. So much like in blackjack, the cleverness of it comes by how well you're able to act to behave like you're a superstitious gambler, and I'm just lowering my bet because I don't feel that the juju karma whatever I didn't sacrifice enough black cats comes out, or when you're betting 6 times your average bet when there's 8 or 9 out, that works out. So I bet Mr. Ivey was pretty good at that.
Yeah, and we talked, I think, last week about how many hands he played. It was in the thousands of hands at large amounts of money, and you hit the nail on the head there. If they have 5 times their average bet every time an 8 or 9 gets dealt first off the top, they're somebody's going to maybe pick up on it. So they have to, like you said, they have to disguise it at some point. They can't bet the same max bet every time there's an 8 or a 9, you
have to get it. You have to do it wrong on purpose.
You have to do it wrong on purpose.
Have to make a huge bet on a losing card and whatever. Yeah.
And knowing,
but it's a. I think I looked up, and I think it was something that comes out to if you can only see the first card in back red, it's like a 4.6% edge or something like that, which is
huge,
gigantic.
Yeah,
gigantic.
People battle for a 1% edge in blackjack, and to get a 4 or 5% edge is massive. But even when Phil was getting it in bad on purpose for cover, I'm sure he ran really good and banked anyway. So it's Phil Ivey, right?
Sure.
The guy doesn't run bad.
Sure. Don't forget the casino. You're in a contract with the casino.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. You violated the contract.
Email number
0800.
Andy writes, "Hey guys, loyal listener. Really enjoyed the hedge fund interview. I'm in the group that loved that one, but skipped listening to a Kassouf interview. Keep the variety coming. I'm writing because I think we went over the line a little bit when talking about the judge in the Ivey case, using very limited information. How often have you read an article about poker from the media and been disgusted by how wrong they got it? Now extrapolate that and consider how incomplete or wrong a short article about a legal decision can be. I'm not saying the judge got it right, but realize that his job is to apply the law as it exists. New Jersey may have some shit casino laws, but if that's the way it's written, that is how he must rule. Ivey simply was or was not in violation of the New Jersey Casino Control Act. I'm not an expert here or even remotely well read in the case, but was very put off by your confidence that this is a shit judge, calling out his name and suggesting listeners write letters to disrupt his career. Especially Terrence, when all you knew was what Adam stated in a few sentences based on probably a short article he read. Likely you have a problem with the law, but not this judge. But maybe I'm wrong and don't have all the info, so I won't tell everyone I know to run it once and have you removed. I don't know if anyone but me would listen, but I'd certainly love to hear an interview with a gambling legal expert who has read the full decision. Oh, and electing judges is bullshit. You're certainly right about that. It's a good point. Yeah, I mean, if the law is cut and dry, and he decided to rule in the casino's favor, then I guess we probably should have a bigger problem with the people who wrote the laws rather than the casino.
Yep, and I would be down to. I mean, I'm always down to have somebody who knows what they're talking about more than me, which is pretty much everybody on this topic. I mean, I don't recall ever asking for the judge to remove. Did we say that? Say that
we might have in jest. I don't know if I seriously would have thought that was the case, but who knows?
I don't remember saying
we were fired up. That's
yeah,
for sure.
But I think
clearly it's the law that's the problem there, if that's the case.
The way I see it though is that the casino has an edge in the gambling, and they also have an edge on the legal side, considering that they probably have, inroads, connections, lobbyists towards getting the decision that they want. So, as good old D. Trump says, it's a rigged system.
All I remember saying, with respect to like the rightness or the wrongness was that, the strongest thing that I can say is that I personally love it when players beat the shit out of casinos for doing dumb things. That's all I remember saying. I'll hold true to it. And anytime I hear a fantastic story about a casino getting it in super bad and taking it up the bum hole for that reason, then I will continue to be extremely pleased because casinos do shit like this. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Email number
9.
Number 9 is from D. Ross, who writes, "Hey guys, I have a question for you guys, and or the next time you have a PLO expert on." I think he's saying that we aren't experts. I think I was involved in a fairly large PLO pot where I had ace-10-4, no suits. I have the 4 of diamonds. The flop is king, queen, jack with 2 diamonds, so I flop the nut straight. My 2 aces are useless here. There's 100 in pre-flop with 3 other callers. It's checked to me, and I bet 80. I'm in position against 1 caller. He pots it back to me, which leaves me his re-raise, plus about half my stack left behind. I had him slightly covered. He's a pretty solid player, and I think he sees me as a solid player who has won most, if not all, pots at Showdown. We've been at the same table for 2 or 3 hours, and I haven't seen him make any crazy bluffs. So I'm just taking all the bluffs out of the equation. So I think he knows I have ace-10. That's fine. Now I realize he likely has ace-10 as well. I guess he could have a set with the ace-x of diamonds. I mentioned that I have the 4 of diamonds, so I have 1 blocker, but that doesn't make too much of a difference, right? Right. I repot and shove. He calls, and he has what I thought. Ace-10 with a diamond redraw. Diamond comes on the turn, and he gets a pot. Side note, the casino doesn't allow running it twice. Maybe I should have just called this check raise and folded if the board paired or a diamond showed up on the turn, or is this a hand that's hard to get away from and that's poker? If not, am I correct in waiting to see what happens on the turn, or is there anything else to think about? Thanks, guys.
You want to hit this one, T, or you want me to go?
My thought on this is it is bad luck, but it is also bad to put all of your money in on the flop. And this is just generally why, like the nut straight on the flop in PLO when the money's reasonably deep is not very exciting for this reason. So, yeah, I mean, it's bad luck, but it's also not correct to shove all your chips in.
Well, this one specific is interesting. And first, there's an old poker saying. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but it's something to the effect of there's a story about a farmer who lost half his farm drawing to a straight, and he lost the other half when he made it. Right? That's the old joke. But this one specifically, when you have 2 aces and with the 10 for the nut straight, without the ace of diamonds, and this guy's wants to play big pot with you. There's only 2 aces left, so if he has ace-10, there's a decent chance that he's got a redraw with a flush draw, or some ace-ace king-queen type hand where he's got a redraw to a full house, whatever. When you have the bare nuts, like Terrence said on the flop, with anti-blockers, I guess, with the two aces that aren't the ace of diamonds, it's a pretty tough hand to play. You've bet the flop, and now you get raised, and you only have, half. I think he said half his pot or half a stack left after he called her. So if he calls the check raise to wait for the turn to see if a diamond rolls off or pairs the board, and then folds, I mean, I guess I'd have to know exactly, how much you had left in the stack relative to the pot, but I don't hate flat calling the raise and then seeing what rolls off. Now, again, I have to figure out what the chances are of him having, the nut diamonds along with or a diamond along with his ace to have a redraw. But there's also other redraws where people flop, ace-10 with the jack-queen or some kind of full house redraw as well.
Email number.
Andrew in Tasmania writes, just a short email to say thanks for all the entertainment and knowledge that you guys pass on to us poker fans out there. I mainly listen to your podcast and one other, Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. Sorry for nitpicking, but as I listen to the show, Terrence says the word like in almost every few words, and it's really annoying. He's so smart and articulate 1,000 times more than I am, but it's driving me a bit crazy and takes away from the topics. He used to say like a lot without knowing until my girlfriend picked up on it, and I gradually got out of the habit. Hope you can too. Apart from that, keep up the good work. Thanks so much. Wow, that's nitpicking, T.
Yeah, I mean, somebody picking up on my verbal tics instead of yours for a while. So,
I was going to say, that's exactly what I was going to say. Somebody's picking on you instead of me for a change. I love it.
Ugh. Fair enough. I'll see what I can do.
I think I say it more than Terrence.
Email number
11.
That's your drop?
That's the 11 drop?
No, how do we not have this one goes to 11, the Spinal Tap drop? That needs to be right in there.
I'll have to get it.
All right. T, you go.
Ross has homework this week. Xander says, "Dear Speedy, Fighty, and Droppy." Am I Speedy? No. Okay. Here's a poker puzzle coming to you from...
No, Terrence, I mean...
100
you're Fighty, obviously.
No, he knows.
Hey, how are you?
A poker puzzle coming 100 kilometers from Kells. All 52 cards are face-up, and you have to select any 5 to make your hand. Your opponent then selects 5 to make his hand. You then have an option to discard any or all of your cards and select new ones. Discards are removed from the game, and then your opponent has the same option. Best hold'em hand at this point wins. All card selections and draws are done in full view of your opponent. You always get to go first. How do you guarantee a win every time? Not a tie, but a win. Keep up the good work. Love the show, etc., etc.
Oh, that's good.
So, I mean, I think I know the answer.
I think I do too.
Adam, what I'm sort of thinking here is, I think I know the answer to this, and I think you know the answer to this.
Yeah.
But...
Well, let's be honest. We said the answer. We talked about the answer, and then we deleted it because it's better answered by our listeners.
All right. So go ahead, post in the show thread. This is Pokercast 439. Put in the thread if you think you can figure out the solution to Xander's problem. I think you can. I don't think it's a hard one, but it's a fun one to think about. So thanks, Xander.
All right, let's get into the Ross report.
Good old Roscoe. Sure glad he's all right.
Listen, boy, you gotta pick your spots good. You gotta make hay while the sun shines. Hey, good. You dipstick!
It's time for a Roscoe report.
All right, Ross is back playing the PLOs at the wonderful Edgewater Casino. This is a 1-2-5, minimum $200 buy, no max game.
No max.
And the first person in the flop is a limp for 5 or a raise to 15.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you're back in the game. You should I do the hand, or do you want to do the hand?
I'll read the hand. You can comment on it. So I have King, King, 7, 8 with 3 spades on the button.
Okay.
And I have about 400 behind. So there's a straddle in the big blind, or under the gun +1. So under the gun +2 makes it 35, which is the max raise facing a straddle. There are 3 calls to me. Now, I just call because there's a really ugly SPR scenario here where there's like 2 of the guys who called have like in between 2 and 400, and then the straddler and the under the gun guy have big stacks. So.
But hang on. So you're saying that if you raise here, that you're not gonna like the result?
Well, I think that if I raise, like, there's not going to be any more poker to be played. It's just I'm going to be getting it all in versus these short stacks.
But that might not be a bad thing because you've got dead money and you've got 2 kings, so you've got a decent amount of equity against all hands except 2 aces.
Yeah, and I'm also kind of afraid of the under the gun guy because he's quite tight and he made a max raise under the gun and he's got me covered.
Yeah. I think it's reasonable to flat there with the king simply because you are facing an under the gun raise. I mean, there are still people behind, so any of them could have aces. Obviously, the guys in between probably don't, but it's not inconceivable that they have aces too. So Yeah, I'm okay with not looking for opportunities to chip your whole stack in with kings here. I think when there's when the first position raises.
Yeah. So I end up just calling. Now the small blind calls, and the guy who straddled, he's a wealthy, young, aggressive kid, and he just decides to make it 300. So this is kind of a similar scenario to what happened last week. Now the guy who I was afraid of originally folds, and the guys in between with the short stacks are complete recreational players, and they all decide to put in the money.
So 2 calls. So there's a 300 and then a fold and 2 calls.
Yeah.
300?
So there's 2 guys who are all in facing the $300 raise, and there's one guy who has like about as much as I do.
Okay. So no protection coming.
Yeah. So they call now since the under the gun guy folded, and the guy who straddled. I mean, he could have aces, but I think it's unlikely that. I mean, it doesn't make up all of.
He has a lot more than aces.
Yeah, he's just he wants to gamble. So at this point, I decide to put it in, and
so that's interesting. Do we like?
I think it's pretty clear that we want to play bingo here. I mean, it's possible that the 2 guys in between have aces. Like I said, like people do flat with aces and then try to back raise. I think it's possible the straddler's aces, but now I think you're definitely at the point where. I think your equity against 3 not random, but like maybe top 30% hands is okay here. I mean, I definitely like to run some simulations on this one before I answer definitively, but I feel like we can just play bingo here, right?
I don't think it'd be a big mistake either
way.
A
good chance that the end of the gun raiser had 1 ace specifically in his hand, which is super helpful because that's also the kind of hand that like a sort of Broadway, the ace, queen, jack, 9 kind of Broadway hands that like to raise under the gun but get scared when there's a lot of action behind.
So you end up calling, I'm guessing?
Yeah. I put it all in.
And what are you up against?
Obviously, the other guy calls. I didn't see all the hands, but when that ended up happening was the flop was like 3, 6, 9. So I flopped an open ender.
Yeah.
There was a flush draw on board. The turn gave me the nut straight.
Boom.
And I was like,
Gem.
ship it. But that brought a second flush draw, and then so there was like a million things to fade on the river, and the river was an 8, which made one of the guy who was all in with like the small stack. He made the nut straight, and I took the side pot, and I made like $60.
All right, hand number 2.
And actually, nobody had aces.
Okay.
There was the guy who shipped it had like.
Well, you didn't see all the hands though.
Yeah, I know, but nobody showed or said that they had aces. And the guy who straddled had just like an ace, a smooth ace run down. And then, the other people just had total, complete randomness. Okay, so the second hand, we were playing four-handed because it's late on Sunday night, and there's one. The casino has dumb rules where they want to keep one game 9-handed. And they don't want to like split it up, even if the players want to play like short-handed.
Right.
They're gonna try and keep one game full while they just destroy the other game.
Yeah.
And but luckily they made the rake pretty small, so it was only like a $4 rake. So I was happy about that. So I have Jack 9, 8, 6 double suited diamonds and clubs. The Jack high, Jack 6 diamonds, 9, 8 of clubs. Nice short-handed hand. So we are 4-handed. I have 900 behind. Under the gun, who is a regular, opens to 15. I call in the small blind. The big blind, who is he's a spot. Well, he's not like he understands the game, but he's just on tilt. He's probably down like several $1,000s.
Okay.
So he pots it to I think 45. We both call. Now the flop is queen of clubs, 5 of clubs, 8 of hearts. So I flop a weak flush draw and gutter ball.
And a pair.
And a pair, yes. So I check, the big blind checks, and under the gun, the regular bets 110. I peel, and the turn is a 4, and the big blind folds, turn is a 4 of diamonds, completing a straight. But not my straight. I check, he tanks for like a good while. And while he's tanking, I'm thinking if he bets here, I could probably raise him off of this hand, because he just seemed like very unsure about what to do on that card. He's pretty conservative player. He ends up checking behind. The river is a king. I check again. He bets, and I fold.
All right. I want to talk about the flop here. I think that's the interesting spot for me. Again, you have Jack 9, 8, 6 with the 9, 8 of clubs, and the flop is Queen 8, 5 with 2 clubs. So you flop, again, a gut shot to the nuts, middle pair, and a flush draw, and you're playing three-handed. You check. The guy bets 110. Your stack is 900. I think I like a raise here. I think you got a ton of equity. I think you're going to win the pot with a raise a lot of the times, and if you don't, there's not a ton of bad cards that can roll off, I don't think, like maybe an offsuit ace, or, maybe making a 2-pair, I guess. Yeah, I just think you have enough equity to check raise here on the flop. And I realize you're bloating the pot out of position against an aggressive player, but you have a ton of equity in this hand, I think.
Yeah, I think that the money's a little bit too deep to want to check raise here. I like the thinking, though. I mean, I didn't even sort of think about that line on the flop. I do like the thinking. I think it's a little bit deep, and if we had one kind of nut draw or another, I would certainly feel comfortable about it. As played, I think I like the call. I thought the question was mostly going to be whether we are going to fire the river. And I think the check is good. I think giving up is probably the right play here, given that the king is probably not the best bluff card. There's a high number of sort of queen, Broadway rundowns of the queen in his range that make 2-pair on the river and pay off. So, I think the hand is played well, personally.
I think that the best check raise spot is on the turn, because that really binds him, and he clearly didn't like the straight card, and
Well, especially going with your read, right? Like going with your read, and the fact that the tank checking distribution, if it's not balanced, the tank betting distribution on the turn if it's not balanced, is like I say, it's high in like queen high rundowns, or king queen jack 10 ace queen blah blah blah, top pair basically with Broadway cards. So I certainly like your thinking, because those hands can't take a check raise for sure.
After the hand, he told me that he said I should have bet the turn, and
see, I think if you check raise the turn, to me, when I see that, I think that a lot of times that's a huge combo draw on the turn, and you try to take the pot. It could have been a mate
straight though.
Could be, yeah. You could have 6-7, but also I think a large part of the range is a combo draw as well. I think personally, when I see that,
that's
especially
true.
Playing shorthanded.
But
so I think it's a hard sell on the turn if you check raise. I just think when you check raise,
it's a hard sell. But what are you sitting there? If you're the guy sitting there with king queen jack 10, what are you doing?
On the turn,
just be like stationing the. Yeah, are you just going to station the guy because you think he might be betting a combo draw?
Depends. I mean, king queen jack 10, that specific hand. That
like
hand,
something in that.
Even queen 5 or queen 8.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I guess so. I mean, I think if you have hands that like queens or 5s or 8s, like you flop a set, you're probably going to do it on the flop. It's a pretty wet board. If you wait to check raise the turn, I don't see you with like top set very often there, I guess.
Yeah, but
I think
in the PLO Quick Pro that I studied,
sure.
he's a big play of his that he advocated and was check raising the turn with draws, because you only need. I don't have the stat up in front of me.
And I think the stack size, and I think the stack size is a lot more conducive to check raising the turn too. Once if he puts in that second bet, that presumably it would be about 200 and something, then you're at a stack size where basically you're getting it all in, and like you say, the fold equity combined with the pot equity, getting there on the river equity is high enough to make it a profitable play. But when you check raise the flop and then he 3-bets, shoves you, like his 3-betting shove range is strong enough that your pot equity isn't high enough, plus you have 0 fold equity. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I get your logic here. So
all right,
I like it.
Let's go on to hand number 3. Oh, what happens? Yeah, you
I
folded.
just folded.
You folded, yeah. Hand number 3.
Hand number 3, 1,000 behind. I have 8, 9, 10 jack in the small blind.
Oh, fist bump.
Nice hand. Yeah, so there is a raise under the gun, a call in between, and this is a few hours later. This is in the main game, and it's kind of dwindled down to mostly young regulars
who are stuck.
And the guy on my left is the guy. No, most people weren't stuck. The guy on my left was, and I won a big pot against him earlier, and he's definitely the spot in the game.
Okay, so you're in the small blind again. Raise to 15, 2 calls.
I raise, I 3-bet to 50 out of the small blind. I think that I should be doing this sometimes with this hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I haven't played in a while, so nobody's seen me 3-bet anything other than a big pair.
Okay.
So the big blind flat calls, and the other 2 guys call. So we are 4 to the flop, which has $200 in it. The flop is 9, 3, 4 with a spade draw, which I have, the Jack 10 of spades. So I lead out. I bet 140. The guy on my left flats the spot, and the other 2 guys fold. Now the turn is the 10 of clubs.
Fist pump.
Yeah, it's a good card.
So you flopped. You turn top 2 with still the spade draw.
So I have the spade draw and an open ender now.
Yeah.
Now he has about 550 behind, and I don't want to just pot to get him off of whatever he has. I ended up deciding to bet 300 to effectively put them all in, but not look quite as scary as a pot.
Yep, I like the sizing.
So I bet 300, and he goes all in like very quickly, and obviously I call. So I guess, yeah.
Love everything about that tee. I don't know the sizing. Do you like the sizing on the turn?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. I really, honestly, I don't think it matters what you do, whether you bet big or you bet what you did. The guy's clearly, if he's putting it in there, neighbors picked a great time to start construction. But I don't think it matters too much of your sizing. I mean, as long as you're not way under betting, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to pot it, and because the money's going in if he has something, and it's not going in if he doesn't.
What happened?
God, how tilting is that? Let's kill this show.
I can't even hear it. It's a bad beat alert. He had Ace King 10-10.
Ooh, the one outer on the turn? No, he had
Ace
kings.
Ace King 10-10 with no flush draw. Yeah. He had no flush draw.
It's the one outer to Ross going broke.
Yeah,
that's the one outer to busting him.
And you still got a ton of equity still.
Doubling the guy through.
Yeah, no, I didn't win that pot.
You didn't win.
So yeah, and then I don't know.
Did you reload?
Couple other things happened.
Did you walk home with your tail between your legs?
Essentially, but it didn't feel that bad because I just got unlucky. I didn't play badly. And so yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know if you guys have a favorite thing, but my favorite thing this week is I started listening last night on my walk home from said casino. This new Gimlet podcast, Crime Town.
You know what my favorite thing is?
What?
The favorite thing drop.
Oh, okay.
I'm just gonna stick it to that.
Phone apps and movies and NPR podcasts. Love catching fishes and check raising rivers. We have great taste to listen to our choices. These are a few of our favorite things.
I love Gimlet podcasts. Any Gimlet podcast I'm going to give a chance to.
Yeah. So it has all the makings of a serial podcast, effectively.
Oh, cool.
It's a good story about a crooked mayor in Rhode Island, a bunch of interview with old school mobsters, and
wow.
They've got that great East Coast mobster accent.
Slang.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed the first couple of episodes. So
awesome.
Go and listen.
Crime Town.
Probably almost as good as All In or Knocked Out, right? For us,
yeah,
it's like
almost
on the if All In or Knocked Out is a 10, it might be like a strong 7, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
It's a good 7.
There you go. That's pretty high praise.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
that's gonna wrap it up, I think. Thanks, Roscoe, for coming out to the suburbs. Appreciate that. T for getting up early, back in Hong Kong and spending some time with us. And to Mr. Mike Sexton for staying up ridiculously late to to talk about the World Poker Tour. Love that
multiple time zone podcasts. We managed to shuffle it around this week. We had the Pacific Coast, we had the Atlantic Coast, and we had the Southeast Coast of China.
Whatever, exactly. It is a multicultural, multi-time zone type podcast. All right, so you've got the fight this weekend, or we're done for the week then? I guess.
I guess I'm thinking that we probably got to get it done this week, but I'll be happy to give you guys a trip report on Monday morning after I take this thing down and I win myself an MMA bracelet.
That's all right. Looking forward to that.
Big oversized trophy for the win.
Go for it.
Did you see the one? We forgot to mention it to Mike, but when you win a World Poker Tour event, you win one of these giant.
He just won a poker bracelet.
You win a big giant poker belt. Like it's like an MMA type. It's like Connor's belt. It's that big.
Yeah, is that only for Montreal?
I don't know.
I thought that was. It's for every World Poker Tour tournament. I thought it was only for Montreal.
Not sure. It's
a good gimmick though.
It is. All right. We will talk to you later this week, maybe, or next week.